Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's EEA Education Series C. Today, we will discuss the current state of wallet access and security for corporate users. Everyone is in listen-only mode. However, you are encouraged to ask questions by using the question box in your control panel. Today's call is being recorded and will be available to all attendees soon after today's presentation. The Enterprise Ethereum Alliance is a member-driven standards organization whose charter is to develop open blockchain specifications that drive harmonization and interoperability for businesses and consumers worldwide. We welcome any and everyone to join and become a part of our global community. At this time, we are pleased to introduce EEA's Security SIG Chair, Tom Lindman.
Well, thank you, Teresa. I want to also give a shout out to Ken Fromm, as well as Teresa King from the EEA for designing and organizing this webinar. My name is Tom Lindeman. I work at Consensus. I'm the chair of this security special interest group and would like to welcome folks from around the world as well. We opened this session up to non-EEA members so you can get an idea of some of the things that we talk about in these working groups. And I've got a great topic today. It's on wallets and security. It'll be a little bit of a spin from the corporate point of view since we are the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. This call will also serve as the August education call. So today we've got Wei Wu Zhang from AlphaWallet, and he's going to be digging into some of their new features as well as a thing called token script that well, I'm not going to get it right, but it kind of lets your tokens run as dApps inside your wallet. So very much looking forward to hearing about that. And we also have Tom Teman, who's one of the co-founders of Portis, who's going to talk about and hopefully demo some Shapeshift stuff. I did manage to get a hardware device at eea-eth Denver. Thank you very much. I'm not sure how I did that, but I was just standing in the right place at the right time. It's very, very cool. At the end, I will ask some more questions, and we'll probably take some Q&A from everybody as well. So type your questions into the chat, as Teresa said, and onward we go. I believe we're going to have Wei Wu from AlphaWallet go first.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Thank you for explaining token script, and it's pretty much what you just described. So I'm from AlphaWallet, and today's topic will be about multi-sig check protocol, which we're working on. A bit about AlphaWallet. It's open source, and I think it's the only open source software presently available as a Ethereum wallet on both Android and iOS. And we are also a creator of token script, which is basically allowing your token issuers to bundle their dApp and deploy it in the wallet. But going beyond that, of course, it's for more security because then the user wouldn't step into the wrong dApp and to manipulate, which might manipulate your token. And it's more available than the website. But it's also very, going beyond that, very well integrated with the wallet and other websites. So it makes it easier for you to use your token, for your user to use your token on other website that is not developed by you. And you can see your token balance and activities together with other tokens. So it's not just a viewport to your token functionalities, but well integrated and well composable with other tokens. Today's topic is about multi-sig. When I started to buy Bitcoin 10 years ago, and studied the Bitcoin protocol, and I had this question even back then that I was giving free Bitcoins to friends and people I met on in conferences, and I'm not sure if they will actually be able to spend them. So the feature request I had at that time is, why don't we make a multi-sig so that if I send Bitcoin to someone, I sign it, and the other person also have to sign in order to receive it. So I know that they have the private key to spend them. So I don't have to waste my gift Bitcoins. It turns out that to support this, you need not only Bitcoin to support it, but also wallet to support it. And it was 10 years ago, but sadly today, this feature is still missing in a lot of in almost all scenarios. And here is one scenario where multi-sig can really shine. I'm starting this. I will extend from this story to other stories later. So let's say that you are running exchange. Typically, you have a custodian exchange. User deposit money into the exchange, and later when they want to create order, they create order using this money. So there are two separate processes. One is depositing money and withdraw, and the other is creating orders and filling orders. If multi-sig is implemented, then the user should be able to send the order in a cryptographically signed message directly from the user's wallet. And if there is order to be filled, even if the user is not online, this should be possible by countersigning user's order and withdrawing money from user's wallet. Therefore, you can have more security because you have less counterparty risk, and you also have less attack surface, in the sense that the money doesn't stay on the exchange account for a long time. In this case, we demonstrated multi-sig, but to really make it useful, we need to introduce another concept called attestation. It's not a new concept. Attestation has been used for 3 decades. So compared to let's say compare sending ether by multi-sig, which is the case where I send ether to someone, I want to be sure the recipient have the private key. Compared to that, which is on the left, observe on the right, where we have use case where I can send ether by email. Borrowing from the early internet development, if you can send money by email, which is what PayPal did, you can have a really good boost on adoption. So sending ether by email works in this way. First, you send ether requiring the recipient to have instead of specifying the public key, you require the recipient to have a email attestation on his email address and his Ethereum address. So this would be the process that Alice sends a check promising Bob 1 ETH if Bob can produce proof of owning Bob at example.com. And Bob on the other side can get the check and then acquire a attestation from a tester to prove that he owns the email address. And with these two pieces of message, he can redeem the money. So it's like multi-sig with 3 parties, but with a process in it. And this process shows attestation at use. This is a concept we can further expand on and cover a lot of use cases. So on the left side, we have the authorization use cases, where a CEO can issue a check allowing the company's clerk to withdraw ether from the company's ether account. The CEO can write that it's up to 100 ether per day. And the actual access is controlled by the employee having attestation that assigned him to the role that can use this authorization to spend money from the company's account. This will be an example, and if it is done with token script, the clerk will be able to use this functionality even if they are accessing a website that simply want ether and does not have the functionality of recognizing attestation or multisig. On the right side, this example contract work. So let's say a customer write a check, 5 ether, redeemable if a job is done. Let's say the job is renovating his home. Then the contractor who renovated his home can get a attestation from a third party to attest the work is done, and then withdraw the money from the wallet. If you observe these use cases, you notice that both of them requires check, which is the initial message of the multisig, and attestation, which is the following signatures, and finally the redeemer's signature. That's better than the traditional process where you will use a smart contract for everything. In the traditional process, you get compared to the traditional process, you get more manageability. you can provide access and permission without wasting money on gas transfer, just to manage stuff. And in terms of privacy, the check protocol I'm presenting here is a work in progress, but it already have a protocol that protects the email address with a Pedersen commitment and with zero knowledge proof. The actual paper on this process can be downloaded from somewhere on the web. I forgot to attach the link. Maybe later I can ask the host to allow me to share the link in the group chat message. So basically, this is what I want to talk about, the new technology called, a new protocol called check. It's already implemented, working, sorry, it's already half implemented, not really. And the smart contract part of it will be available once the MVP project is done. Do I still have a minute or two? If so, I will introduce more a little bit more use cases of the attestation. Just take 1 minute.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Keep going.
Yeah, okay. So once you have attestation, it will be a building block for other use cases. So here is an example of the futuristic user accessing an online computer game store. Then he can see that this computer game store can interact with 5 tokens. Observe the 5 tokens below the address bar. And then if the user activates one of the tokens called Amazing Bundle, you can see the price reduced from $55 to about $20. And this is because the bundle guarantees the maximum game price is $20 for whatever game you buy. You have to pay $100 per year to get this bundle. That will be a new business model. And this business model can be enabled with attestation. No blockchain transaction has to happen for this to work. Just the user's interaction with the web. And in the next picture, the user activated gamer credit, which is a payment token. Imagine you have a new ICO that issues this token, and motivation mechanism that people want to have this credit. They can use this credit to buy game, and you can see that by applying this token, the website responds to it and change the unit to credits. And there are other examples of like using Amazon Prime token to get special services, or Post ID to get free delivery. But all these are fundamentally attestations. If you want to transfer them, it will be a blockchain transaction. But if you just want to use it in business process, you can pretty much use signed message and ask user to co-sign it and produce some proof, and then it would enable new business models. I think I'll end here. Is that good?
Yeah, that's great. You actually answered one of the questions I was writing down, so I'll think of another one. No, I really appreciate that. It's super interesting to be able to sort of take that attestation, whether it's for a multi-sig wallet or for something else, and expand that into being, almost anything. It almost feels like some kind of an oracle. Rather than having to have the private keys to a wallet, you could have a signed piece of paper from somebody that acts as the attestation. So I think that's going to open up a lot of stuff. Assuming I understood it correctly.
Yeah. I think your question is a great question. A comment, your great comment.
I'll have some more. So great introduction. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about, Wei, before we turn it over to Tom?
Yeah, more time to come. I can talk about TokenScript, but I can talk about this for a whole year. I really love to talk about this. So yeah, Tom has more.
All right. Well, we'll come back to you in just a little bit and dive down deeper. We still have a bunch of time, so stay ready, my friend. Okay, Tom, over to you.
Hey everyone, hold on, turning on my webcam again. Okay. Hey everyone, so I'm Tom. I'm one of the original co-founders and CEO of Portis. A little bit of history. So the idea I've been in blockchain since around 2013. Been a big, fan of the ecosystem. And back around end of 2017, early 2018, I started Portis because I saw a problem in the ecosystem where nobody could actually use dApps. It was super complicated. And when we build the Portis solution, one of the things that I saw as key is, well, using that phrase is kind of funny, but what I saw as key is self-custody of your private key. A lot of the solutions out there had, if you're talking about stuff like exchanges, a lot of them ask you to, they'll hold your private key for you, and this is not, it goes against a lot of the things that are the ethos of blockchain. And it's also a big security risk and a liability. If we're talking about enterprises, a lot of them will not want to hold anybody's private key, especially because if you're trying to solve some sort of problem with trust and you have multiple parties that want to collaborate, be it a permission blockchain or public blockchain or a combination of both, in a lot of those cases, you don't want to be in a position where you have a centralized authority for those private keys, because then the whole problem of trust isn't really getting solved. On the other hand, asking users to store their private key on something like MetaMask, which was pretty much the only solution back then, beside, for users to interact with dApps, and that was, that's kind of rough. In addition to being technically very complicated, it also means that the user, if they lost their laptop, that's it, it's gone forever. So the way we tackle this problem is by using end-to-end encryption. And if anyone here is familiar with LastPass or 1Password, it's kind of the same, just instead of passwords, it's your private keys. So what you do is everything is encrypted inside the device, inside the browser. So you create your wallets, you encrypt them locally. We store that encrypted blob, but we have no way of decrypting it. We're using S-script, 100,000 iterations. We're doing the standard way that it's done. So unless you chose something very poor like password 123, there's no way to do a dictionary attack or anything like that. It will just take thousands of years. So users get that experience of, we log in with an email and password, we have that cloud experience, so you can log in from your phone, then from your computer, and it's the same device. If you lost your phone, you can just log in again and do whatever you want. But on the other hand, it's your private key. It's never, it's never unencrypted anywhere else besides on your device when you're using it. Another key feature that was very important for us is being cross-blockchain. So in addition for supporting Ethereum, which is the thing we did from day one, because we're big Ethereum fanboys and we believe a lot in this ecosystem, we also support like Bitcoin and Scale, Matic, RSK, Thundercore, a whole lot of other blockchains, and we're adding more every day. And this cross compatibility, this interoperability, we also saw something very important. And the way we architectured our encryption means that we can easily add more, types of private keys, more blockchains, and we're making sure that they can also be interoperable. In at least from a user experience perspective, it becomes easier because it's just the same account. You have an email and password, and as you know, Shapeshift recently acquired us, so that also means that if we want to let the user easily switch between tokens, we're making it very, very simple for him, so they don't even have to deal with the complexity of what's going on. We feel that we need to hide everything from the user, well, except for the private key, holding the private key themselves. Hold on, one of my AirPods is charge one while I'm speaking with the other. So right now we have, I hope you can hear me fine. And right now we have, yeah, great. So we have approximately 100 dApps and companies that are using us. Thousands of developers have tried our SDK. We've been very adamant about being very dev-oriented from day one. And the way we see it is kind of like a good story, I think, that demonstrated is the Android story, where because it was very good for developers, a lot of developers build a lot of apps for Android, so Android becomes stronger, which means more developers build dApps on it, et cetera, et cetera. We always want to make sure that we're using the standards that are out there. For instance, one of the things that from day one we saw as a problem, and the way we solved it, by the way, was kind of this, it's a very classic lean startup way of solving it, which is the gas fees. That was a very big problem for users because they want to just interact with a dApp. They want to sign a transaction. They want to just kind of write something to the blockchain, but now they need to get, even if it's $1 of ETH, because back then transaction cost cents, not dollars like they did today. But even if they need those couple of cents, they have to go in and exchange, they have to buy it. And we added we added like a way of purchasing with a credit card, but still that's a big hurdle for a user to deal with that. Even if we're talking long-term, that's someone else has to pay it. So as a very lean startup way of solving it, we gave each user $1. We just wanted to do an experiment and see if that works. And it did, it worked great, but it doesn't scale obviously, and people will also try to abuse it. So we wanted to solve it in a more sophisticated manner, but we said, you know what, let's wait for the ecosystem to take care of that. And that's the gas station network, which solves it by letting you use relayers to pass along the transaction. And we were the first Web3 provider to support gas station network. Now the new version is coming out, so we're obviously upgrading to it. There's NFT support. We added features like trust this app, which lets users say, look, I trust this application. Don't ask me to sign a transaction each and every time. So just let me say I trust it, and if it goes above, like if I'm paying for something, if it's an actual payment, or if the gas fee is like it's making like thousands of transactions, so okay, maybe we need to stop because there's like a bug or it's malicious, then I need to start proving it. But we were trying to, we get that this is blockchain and there shouldn't be trust, but that doesn't mean that you can't have sometimes a little trust if you want to. It doesn't have to be so maximalist. We added capabilities of direct purchase, letting users use their credit card to buy something when they're using a DApp. We had a provider, we're in between providers right now, so we had to take it off, but it's coming back very shortly. A direct purchase flow, for instance, again, trying to create this Web 2 experience for users so they don't really know they're using blockchain. Our whole mindset has always been users shouldn't care about blockchain because they don't care about it. Just like they don't care about the underlying, how the internet works. They just want to use the applications. So the direct purchase flow allows a user, let's say they go on something like Gods Unchained, they want to buy some packs. They don't need to go and purchase in crypto, come back, finish the transaction and wait for everything. They just click one button and it goes through. We actually kind of pre-sign a transaction, then we get the fiat for crypto for them through our providers, and then we automatically relay the transaction once the money is inside their wallet. Again, all non-custodial. We never hold anybody's funds. So there's that. We're currently adding Starkware support for ZK Snarks, for the Reddit bake-off they're having. We're trying to always make sure that the latest technology that the developers, we see that the developers are interested in, so we add that. If it's more chains, if it's more standards, if it's more other user experience, capabilities. So we have a lot of dApps using us, and at some point dApps are like bigger applications, bigger companies even approach us and saying, look, we love what you're doing, but we want to truly own it. We want some white labeling. So back in, I think it was around March this year, so a little bit earlier than that, we started talking, we had conversation with Conf. We actually had a contract in place for consensus in New York, the whole blockchain week, actually, for CoinDesk to use Portis as part of a new wallet that will be used by all attendees and make the experience very, very nice and friendly. Well, we all know what happened in March and April of this year. So conferences in New York was out of the question, and that all kind of went away. But this was supposed to be a pilot of a much bigger thing that we already had in the works, which is the whole white labeling solution. And shortly after, when the Shapeshift acquisition came along, Shapeshift released their mobile application. And what powers the mobile application is actually the Portis tech, the whole end-to-end encryption. So those of you who are unfamiliar with Shapeshift, it's one of the oldest exchanges in the ecosystem. And what they've been doing is they've also been very adamant about being non-custodial from day one. And so it made a lot of sense for them to acquire us. And they were also very much interested in the technology that powers Portis, which is the whole non-custodial solution, because that also allows them to give users a very good experience while still making sure they're not holding anybody's keys for trust issues, for liability issues, for legal issues. There's a whole lot of reasons why you don't really want to hold anybody's private key. So I'm gonna show you a quick video just to kind of demonstrate. I want to show what can you do once you, as a company, you don't have to worry about the whole, how do I manage a user's private key in a way which is super simple and also very easy. It has a lot of, power around it, so you can do some more interesting stuff. When I say interesting, I mean a very good user experience while maintaining security. So hold on one second. I need to see how I'm going to share that. Okay. Okay. So, no, sorry, wrong one.
I almost saw your balance there.
Yeah, well, this was created like with a fake account, so no worries. I'm actually going to show you a seed phrase as well. So, yeah, that's the one. So if you haven't checked out the Shapeshift mobile app, I suggest you give it a try. It's you get $3 worth of Bitcoin for free. So this is like a standard onboarding, as you can see, and all the user needs to put in is their email address. This was by Tyler, one of the Shapeshift employees who created this video. And the idea is that we want to keep the experience very familiar for users. Now, this is the only thing that's kind of different. We tell them, look, when you're creating the password, it's going to be, we can help you recover it if you lose it. That's kind of the tough part, but that's like with great power comes great responsibility aspect of it. So, and the user, we keep on bugging him, telling him to store their password in a safe location. They have a recovery phrase as well in case they forget it. And we have we're putting in additional safeguards in place. Like if we see, once we will see that you go above a certain amount of value in your wallet, then we will bug you and say, make sure you write it down, et cetera, et cetera. And we're thinking about additional things we can do, like using a hardware wallet as a backup key, et cetera. So this is, once this is done, once the user is signed up, they just kind of have to verify their email address. And let me just show you what happens afterwards. Sorry, I'm used to Zoom, so I'm a little rusty. Here we go. So he clicked on the email and that will kind of verify, and that's it. That's all it did, like email, password, verify your email, a little bit of onboarding to let you see what's going on. But this is a very familiar experience for a user. This feels just like using Web 2. And the good thing about this is that if they suddenly drop their phone in the ocean, something happens, it gets stolen, lost, smashed, which happens a lot to phones, it's not like the private key only lives on the phone. That's a very scary thought. And on the other hand, you know, it's not just like as long as it doesn't have tons of value, then they're not worried about, you know, if they didn't write down the recovery phrase. Because if they chose a password that they easily remember, which is powerful enough, they can easily access it from a new device and from another device if they want, and they can have this cloud experience of, you know, a synchronization between all of their devices. And the video shows the demonstration, like a lot of assets are supported, if it's Ether, if it's Bitcoin, if it's Cosmos. And right now we're in the process of making this unification between Shapeshift and Portis, which means that very soon, when you go on all of the dApps powered by Portis, you will also have access to all of Shapeshift's capability, which is moving between tokens. And that means that you're gonna have a very powerful experience. One last video I wanna show, I hope I have enough time. It's like a couple of seconds. Do I have enough time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great.
Actually, I'll toss in a quick question. So when I create that password, that's going to, oh, there it is right there. I was just going to say, is there a way, you know, in the background, does this generate, you know, the standard, you know, 14 or 25 word recovery phrase, or does it always stay as a strong password? And sort of, you know, what happens behind the scenes? Like, how does that private key get created just based on my password? Just a little bit more on that would be great.
Yeah, of course, of course. So there's two parts to that question, because there is the way how we used to do it in Portis. When we do the Shapeshift integration, we're changing it a little bit, but actually making it a little better in a way. I would say more better, not cryptographic wise, the cryptography is the same in the sense of making it sure that we never wanted to lock anyone in. So those 12 words that you just saw, if you were quick enough, you can take them, and you're not going to have the $3 of Bitcoin, by the way. You don't actually get it until you do KYC. So if anyone here wanted to be clever, it's going to be an empty wallet. So, but what I'm saying is that we wanted to make sure that those 12 words, if suddenly you decide, you know what, I'm fed up with Shapeshift, I don't like them, or maybe you're afraid that Shapeshift will disappear one day, those 12 words will work on any standard wallet out there. Okay, this is what we call a BIP42, a recovery phrase. It's completely standard. Any wallet out there supports it. The way we did the backup recovery phrase with Portis, you do have those 12 words for the different wallets, but the main one is 24 words that we created for ourselves, and it wasn't as standard. So we changed it for Shapeshift, but the cryptographic is the same. So what happens when you put in a password, what we actually do is we create a random key when you sign up for the first time, a completely random key, and your password is used, and we have a white paper explaining everything. It's a technical white paper, so it's just like mostly explaining that flow of the encryption, decryption, and all that. Nothing about, there's no token or anything like that. So what happens is that you create, let me stop sharing for a second. Okay, can you see me now? Oh, wait, stop sharing screen. Yeah. So what happens is that when the user signs up, we create a random 64-bit key for them. They encrypt it with their password using script. The way you do it with script, it makes sure that it cannot be brute forced with a password. So it takes, like, if I don't know the password and I try to brute force it, it'll take me thousands of years to try and brute force it, even with like the strongest computers. So then that private key that we generate completely randomly, that is used to encrypt those 12 words. So what happens is that you send us back your encryption key and your encrypted blob, which is your 12 words. We hold on to those, but we can't really do anything with them because the encryption key was encrypted using script with your password. We don't know your password. We never know your password. This is the only user experience difficulty that we have here, but we see it as a necessity if you want to maintain self-custody, is the fact that if you forgot your password and you don't have your recovery phrase, we can't help you. But I think that's also a good thing, because in a way what this means is that you have complete control of your private key. So we hold on to that encrypted private key, and we hold on to that encrypted blob of your seed phrase, which you encrypted with that private key. So when you want to log in, you get back your encrypted blob, you get back your encrypted private key, you decrypt that private key, that key that you encrypt everything with. You decrypt it with your password, and now you can decrypt your blob, and you can do everything you want, and you have this, access to everything. I hope that answered the question.
No, it did, and I think other people are thinking about this too. There's I'm not sure how to describe it. I don't think the word is catch-22, but you're trying to solve this problem of making things easier and making things more usable. I certainly remember the first time I typed my credit card into Amazon, and I was just like, all right, well, that's it. Like, all my money's gone. I don't know how, what's going to happen. But the way that blockchain works and the beauty of it and the power of it, it is the strong encryption. And so this concept of, do you think people are ever going to get used to this notion of, if you lose that password or if you lose that private key, your funds are gone. I'm sorry, didn't you read the little note at the beginning? Or if you send a transaction to the wrong address, it's gone. And so that's both scary and dangerous, but that's also one of the reasons that this technology is powerful. Like, are people going to get used to that? Like I did, right?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, but you're kind of like a technical person, probably an early adopter. You're not the person that we're actually worried about. And this was always when we talk about Portis to other people, this is always like these two, orthogonal vectors of usability and security. And on one spectrum, there's like a hardware wallet. A hardware wallet is the most, and I keep telling people, look, if you got $1 million, use a hardware wallet, use a KeepKey, for instance. That's the Shapeshift hardware wallet. And not because our encryption it doesn't work well. Well, because our encryption runs on this. It runs on a phone, it runs on a laptop. These things have an attack surface which is much bigger than a dongle, which is never connected to the internet and is super, super secure. It does a very specific thing, and it does it well. So in that regard, we see that there's always this trade-off. But for instance, what you said about what happens if I send my Bitcoin to the wrong address. So there are ways to solve that. For instance, there's FIO, if you heard about them. So we're also doing an integration with FIO to offer all kinds of way to. You're never going to have something which is completely, there's no, you can never make mistakes. We're just kind of trying to, I'd say, grind the corners so you can't really hurt yourself as bad. And for instance, the whole forgot my password issue. So I mentioned that in the sense that when you start off, I don't want to bug you too much, because if I also bother you too much, then you'll just ignore me. It's like a kid who cried wolf. But once I see that you have, let's say, $1,000, $2,000 worth of value in your wallet, then I maybe start bugging you a little bit. Make sure you remember your password. Make sure that you wrote down your recovery phrase. And this is like part of a bigger thing that we're offering all together when you're using a package like Portis. So if you're a company, a DApp, an enterprise, and you're building a DApp, you have enough on your plate. You don't want to deal with the whole key management, because every DApp needs this. Every decentralized application built out there, be it by a small company, a big company, they will need to handle this whole identity thing. How does a user manage their private key? So we wanted to make sure from day one that we give a solution that is both interoperable in terms of the blockchains, that plugs into a lot of different protocols, that you don't want to reinvent the wheel yourself as a company. And because it's like Twilio, for instance. You can build your own text messaging solution. Sure, you can do that, but why? I mean, it'll cost you more. It's kind of like that classic story about developers when a classic developer mistake, a rookie developer is implementing the daytime themselves. It seems super simple, right? It's daytime. Then you learn about how does daylight savings work in different countries and all kinds of weird shenanigans, all those edge cases.
Not really inventing the wheel. That's a very good topic. Can I borrow this for a while? I think a lot of the, since we're talking about enterprise sector, I think a lot of the existing key management solutions a good bit of it, but not entirely, can be used on blockchain as well. So one thing you just mentioned, key recovery. So for example, there are secret sharing based key management solution, and that can be reused as a key recovery mechanism. It can be used for signing mechanism, or it can be used as a key recovery mechanism. And some of the business already use that. But there is another problem that is related to key recovery that is largely ignored because blockchain was so young. That is, the keys have gone stale. So the assumption is that if the key has been around for a long time, then you can pretty much assume some people not in your company have the key, because it could be in the USB stick that one day I left it on the presentation table, and some intern student pick it up and deliver it to me midnight so that I can use my money, and he could have made a copy. So there is no mechanism available today to revoke a key. You can certainly transfer all your money to a new key, but that requires every contract that has your money or crypto asset allows you to transfer it to a new key. So there's no underlying layer that allows you to transport asset without transporting asset, give you the access to new key. I think this is going to be a problem in a few years. Now we are too young. But eventually, I cannot solve it from the wallet alone. There are technologies like we can use MPC-based signing algorithm to make sure the key never actually in one of the USB sticks. But the assumption is still always true that you might come up with a situation you want to replace the key without replacing the asset. Hope this will catch up as an issue as well, just like the key being lost as an issue that is not caught up. That Ethereum start to take it seriously and build a layer of protocol to solve this.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying about enterprise, there are, as they say, several ways to skin a cat, and in that regard, I think for a lot of enterprises, we should be careful about maintaining the old paradigms that we have, and having a key management store for an enterprise. I think in a lot of ways, It's kind of like, you know how sometimes companies use blockchain, but they don't really need blockchain. That happens sometimes. It's it's sometimes very kind of tempting to do because you're very excited about using this new technology. And a lot of
The
times,
innovation
if the
lab
enterprise
story.
itself,
Everyone have an innovation lab which puts new technology there and make up some Frankenstein.
exactly. It's like a problem looking for it's like a solution looking for a problem. But when there is an actual thing you want to use blockchain for, because you have a real problem of trust, like supply chains, etc., it doesn't really make sense that any one of those entities can hold the private keys in their servers for a couple of reasons. First of all, there's the big liability issue, because if you're holding the private keys for everybody, then that means they're trusting you, and then the need for a blockchain becomes, you know, just an expensive database.
Oh,
So
no, that's not what I mean by having a layer for key replacement. That is not delegate key to someone, but to have let's say, a low-level blockchain core that can allow you to have a new key tested by the old key and send it across the network, and then everybody start to recognize the signature from the new key to operate old asset.
yeah, there are ways to do that also with Ethereum smart contract. That's something that we explored back in the past. So instead of just having a wallet, you have a smart contract, and then you can have like, in a way, kind of like you have an administrator or a power user or just a user, a visitor. You can have different keys to manage one master private key that can do stuff in smart contracts. You maintain one identity. There are a lot of different ways to do that. I agree. The question is how do you act? Where does the private key live? The private key at some point, sure, you can find mechanisms to replace it, to revoke it.
It must not be in other people's hands.
Sorry?
Yeah, you asked where is private key is. I said it must not be in other people's hands.
Exactly. So if it's in your hands, if it's self-custodial, and again, there are ways to do this and to solve this for, you know, sometimes giving one person a key isn't very secure, because if they lose that key or if something happens to it, then you don't want to be losing all the funds to your company, for instance. So one of the dApps using Portis, for instance, it's a Y Combinator dApp. It's called Multis, multis.co, if I'm not mistaken. So they're handling multi-signatures for enterprises, for big companies that need to handle crypto funds and want to have an easy system of, you know, you have your board and you have 5 people, and 3 out of 5 people can sign a transaction. It's like a multi-sig wallet, but on steroids, because you need a lot of, just like when you're using SaaS products and you have a nice dashboard and you have all these functionalities, we need to offer companies the same thing, because that has to remain the same. We cannot expect users to, you know, learn something new, except for the self-custody.
The good thing about that is potentially you can have a multi-sig ECDSA multi-sig without changing the contract, because there are underlying protocols that allows you to do this. So it's transparent to the blockchain. Gives a little bit of flexibility to enterprise. Yeah, with its own problem, but yeah, it's possible to not change the contract too much and just offer it from the wallet perspective.
Hey, Wei Wu, have you seen any corporate users or enterprise scenarios where they've kind of specifically said, yeah, you know, we want to manage everybody's private key in everybody's wallet that's inside our enterprise, and we want to be able to, you know, allow them to recreate their wallet or even potentially, you know, roll back a transaction if it was on their own private network. Like, are you seeing any of these sort of hyper managed wallet and blockchain solutions that are corporate?
There is this lab stuff which requires you to make a product in 6 months or 3 months, and they always fall into this trap. So there are always people who wants to do this, but the right way to look at it is not on the if you cannot solve the problem between 2 parties, then let's have a bigger party that covers both. That's a traditional management thinking. It wouldn't work when you go across the corporate boundary, and even in large organizations like in the bank. I worked in the bank called blockchain architect for 2 years. Even in the bank, there's a boundary that you cannot form a bigger party between 2 banks when it comes to 2 banks interchange assets. So when problem comes to when there's a problem like that, rolling back is one of the things that could be done by a consortium. But the practical ways to use the technology, we call it Dvp security. So Dvp security is instead of calling smart contract and letting smart contract do the job, you'd run the smart contract yourself and compute the result. And you write your result as a requirement for the transaction to be executed successfully, and then post that to the blockchain. Therefore, you have less trust problem with the other party, and the other party can probably even take your what we call DVP attestation to the next level, to the next market, and still carry on the execution. But you always have a clear authorization of instead of say sending 1 Ether out of my wallet, you say that this transaction is going to cost 1 Ether, and if not, in return I will get a packaged, let's say, debt obligation. Then if I don't get that obligation, I don't lose 1 Ether, and it's written not in smart contract, it's written in the transaction, which is always validated by the smart contract, which a layer of the Dvp security guarding the smart contract. So this reduces the chance you need to have a consortium to rotate its back. And the key management is popular, especially let's say in the banks. They have a specialized department to do this, and special signing devices that can sign millions at a time. But it doesn't go through organizational boundary. And I would still say that if you can find an entity who can do this for the organizations, then you don't need blockchain. The requirement is still like you have a layer of trust already. You don't need blockchain to provide any trust. Make sense?
Yeah. Gosh, when was that? It was around 2002. I actually wrote a patent at Microsoft that allowed companies to share their private keys so they could do email across separate domains across different company entities when Active Directory came out. And it was like, yeah, now that I look back of it, it's terrible. What a terrible idea.
Google asks you to upload your ask you to upload your key to the Google Play Store so that they will sign new release on your behalf. And their idea is we are going to, only take the relative section. So if this guy is running a low-end mobile phone, then we don't provide high-end assets. We just reassemble your data, and then we need your keys to sign the new stuff. That's not an excuse. You can produce a multi-signed file locally. You can send it 100 times for different devices and all upload to Google. Or you can even use Merkle tree so that you can sign portion of it. You can sign a big signature that covers 100 portion. So I think they just don't want to use new technology. I think they just think that the trust problem is easily solved by you trust me. That's it.
I think enterprises are also, and rightfully so, because you're usually moving a very big ship. They're a little bit scared of new technology that hasn't been tried and tested. And why I'm excited about the space right now is because we're seeing more and more solutions that are, have been tried and tested. If obviously DeFi, that's really exciting right now, but also you have stuff that we're talking about, how do you manage? So DAOs have been around for quite a while, and a lot of companies are starting to use them in very interesting ways. And that's another way, in a sense, to do key recovery. You can use DAO, you can create your own contract and write something new. But I think a lot of enterprises, rightfully so, will be a little bit wary to be the first ones to try out this new, potentially vulnerable, or something that hasn't been tried by tons of organizations yet. So if we're talking about something like a DAO, for instance, you can create a DAO where if one of the members loses their private key, you can have a vote, and then if it's decided, then we can maybe generate a new private key that has the relevant permissions to do everything that old user could do. Usually the funds will not be in the wallet. They will be in some sort of smart contract where that private key has access to it, especially when we're talking about DeFi. It's the tokens. The Ethereum is going to be the gas. The Ethereum right now that people are holding in their wallets is because of speculation, and they want to have, I personally don't necessarily believe that Ethereum is going to be the new money. I always viewed it as oil. Like Bitcoin is the gold, Ethereum is the oil. And buying barrels of oil while the Model T came out, that could be a good speculation. But in general, the money itself is going to be the DAI. It's going to be Curve, or not Curve necessarily, but all kinds of different tokens.
An important point on enterprise key management. That is, in enterprise setting, you actually don't usually recover the key. So the keys are not recovered. Keys are reclaimed. So if you simply whenever there's a problem, you make a new key, and then you assume all the rights to the new key. You don't. Otherwise, there's a accountability issue in corporate.
Exactly. I agree, and that's why I think in a way having this self-custody for your employee and making sure they have it, if you have a way of recovering it, of giving them a new one, but it could be proven that it's a new one, so that old one, if something was done, you know that you couldn't touch it. And once you reclaim it, there could also be a process in place that the user then signs for it or something. And there are different ways of doing it, so you know that once the user got that new one, that's it. It's only his, and you never were able to actually see it. Like he can generate a new private key privately, sign something, and then the enterprise will say, okay, we allow this private key, the signet that was signed, that signed this message. From now on, that new private key has access to everything because we voted on it with the DAO, and we say, okay, that's cool. We trust this new person. So you can find ways of having a way to, like you said, not to restore a private key, but to reclaim a private key, but still making sure that as an enterprise, you don't have the legal liability and all the headaches that come along with holding private keys. That was one of the main reasons why we did it early on with Portis. We were like, we don't want to deal with all the legal issues in addition to other considerations of holding people's private keys. And if you come from a security background, it's always you either got hacked or you will get hacked. And that's the mindset you got to have. So if you're holding people's private keys, you just become a bigger and bigger target. If it's social engineering, if it's just plain attacks, or all kinds of way of attacking the organization.
Do we still have a question session after this, or?
I think we're kind of doing it right now. I like the way this is flowing. I really like that restore versus reclaim. I do think, back around 2017 when tokens, started coming out, and it was a little bit before CryptoKitties, even inside Consensus, we were, coming up with different sort of schemes and programs to reward people with tokens for, you did something great, or you won a contest, whatever it might be. There's going to be corporate or enterprise or company reward systems or token systems, and everyone's going to have a wallet, but they're not going to be their private wallet in the sense that it's not their private bank account. It's more of a corporate asset, in the same way that them using email or getting access to servers where they use their password or their corporate credentials that can be reclaimed. I think that's going to become more prevalent, because that wallet is essentially just going to be used internally, perhaps on a private instance of Ethereum or a Quorum network or something like that. So I really like that a lot.
Yeah, a common pattern when that happens is that actually I demonstrated in my slide a little bit. The common pattern is that instead of sending money or doing transactions to a specific key, you do it to an identifier, and then later the identifier holder holds a attestation to show that his key is associated with that identifier. Therefore, it separates the key management process and transaction process. If you look at the slideshow I provided, there's always a check and attestation process, CA. So first you issue a check. Let's say Alice issue a check to Bob for 1 Ether with Bob's email address as identifier. In the company, you have an employee number, but otherwise email. Then Bob goes to a tester and attests that he owns that email address. Well, given that email address is easier to attack than Ethereum, it's probably not a good idea for large amount of transaction. But this pattern separates the testing obligation, the accountability thing, with the transfer, which is the financial thing. It's the pattern that emerges quite often in business scenario. While I was experimenting on blockchain projects in Commonwealth Bank in Australia. So much, it occurs so frequently that I decided to make a protocol out of it. And in public Ethereum, a lot of things have to change because in public Ethereum, you have to protect the user's identifier. So there you go with all the crypto magic. I provide a link. Can I provide a link of how to get the check protocol? Is there a place that I can share?
We've got it. Yeah, we put that link in the chat.
Oh yeah, there is one.
I think
Yeah,
Teresa
okay.
did that. And we also got a
And
link
then
in there to the Multis. If you wanted to
And
add
Tom,
a link in there, Tom, you certainly can.
oh, okay. So yeah, actually, one of the things
thank
that,
you.
where's the chat? Let's see, chat. Okay. So one
As
of
we
the
get,
things that also, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, Teresa, as we get down to the final minutes here, I didn't see any questions in the chat that we hadn't kind of covered, and I wonder if there we go, apps at portis.io. I did have a bunch of questions on the different dApps that you guys are seeing, and like, are they integrating with your platform, or are they extending it in some way? But I don't think we have enough time this time. But if there's any questions from anyone else on the call, I think we can unlock your microphone so that you can talk. Is that right, Teresa?
Yes.
I mean, there's just a couple minutes. We got into a really good discussion there, and I thought that was worthy, especially given the enterprise context of the call.
Connected this step to an enterprise team from my angle. So a lot of dApps going on today are serving the token they issued. But in enterprise setting, if you actually issue a token, you want it to be used in other companies. Otherwise, there's no point to issue. So I just gave an example previously, like if you have a gamer credit token, or if you have a trade finance related token, you want them to use in other scenarios. So being able to securely allow other people to use your token on a different website is actually a key requirement. So that touches a little bit on the token script topic I provided earlier, that the core necessity for token script is the capacity to securely pass the code to operate with smart contract to a different website, where you can use tokens to do the two main things that we use token to do at all. That is, first, reduce market friction, so more deals can be done through the help of your token. The second is allow integration so that your token works on other web systems. I'd like to see more development towards this direction from the dev developers, so that the business can finally connect with community.
That's a great comment. Tom, is there any last words you want to jump in with here before we close?
Yeah, it's actually referring to what you said earlier on about the whole people are going to use it when companies give them all kinds of tokens or whatever. I think the big thing that you get in blockchain is the interoperability, is the fact that if you get those tokens, you can go on another app and use it here, and then it can interact with another app. And that's one of the great things about the Ethereum ecosystem and blockchain in general, is like this global API that everybody can hook into. And in a sense, I showed that's why I wanted to talk about the apps at Portis.io, because we're seeing this kind of intermingling between apps where users are going on one app using it for DeFi, then going on a game using tokens they got, and just kind of all kinds of things that we couldn't even think about. It's this network effect which gets super augmented because everything can talk to everything. It's like this grand open API that everybody can communicate with. And we're trying to make this very simple for users to be on board, because the more users are on the system, the more we're going to be seeing this interoperability take place. And it's also going to be relevant for enterprises as well, because there are also going to be a lot of enterprises in the world who are going to be building a lot of applications. And even regular people, if it's on the public blockchain, can interact with, I don't know, Coca-Cola supply chain. They can, maybe someone will write something that, who knows, it's kind of like, it's like imagining Twitter or Instagram back in '97. Who could have thought about something like that when the internet was starting out? So I can't really tell where this will take us, but I'm excited.
I'm glad you guys sort of ended up on the same note there, as far as interoperability and being able to actually use those tokens other than in the lunchroom. I'll definitely make sure that Joe Lubin gives us Ether when we do our internal consensus token program. Hey, I sure do appreciate it, you guys. I know we didn't do a dry run or anything like that, but the conversation went really well. And I sure do appreciate it. I actually would like to maybe continue this conversation at some point, maybe here again in an EEA webinar a little bit later. But I certainly do want to thank you, and I guess we're a little bit over time, but that's okay. Teresa, was there anything else?
Yes. Thank you, Wei Wu and Tom, for joining us today. I want to reiterate what Tom said as well. We enjoyed having you. Please feel free to place your social media handles in the chat so that all attendees can follow your work. And for our attendees, if you're more interested in all the leading blockchain work going on in EEA, please feel free to reach out to our membership director, Jack Lee, or send an email to our membership at entethalliance.org. Thank you. This concludes today's EEA Education webinar series.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Thanks again, you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.